The rain fell in relentless sheets, pounding the pavement and creating a symphony of thunderous drums on the roof of the pizza delivery car. Mark, a lanky teenager with a scruffy beard, stared out of the rain-smeared windshield, cursing his bad luck. The night was dark and stormy, and he was navigating his old, unreliable car through the winding roads of a remote, forested neighborhood. Mark had been working at Tony's Pizzeria for only a few weeks, but he had already heard the stories about the sinister Pinecrest woods. Local legend had it that strange things happened in the woods after dark, and there were tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained disappearances. However, Mark wasn't one to believe in such nonsense. All he cared about was delivering the pizza and earning his tips. He finally reached the address, 113 Pinecrest Lane. The house loomed like a forgotten relic in the heart of the woods, its windows shattered and boards nailed across the front door. Mark double-checked the address on his phone, thinking there must be some mistake. But the GPS pinpointed this eerie, abandoned place as the destination. With a sigh, Mark grabbed the pizza box, wondering if this was some kind of cruel prank. As he approached the front door, the rain seemed to intensify, making the forest come alive with eerie sounds. Rustling leaves, creaking branches, and the occasional hoot of an owl all contributed to the sense of foreboding. He knocked on the door and waited. Minutes passed, but no one answered. Mark was about to turn back when the door slowly creaked open, revealing nothing but darkness within. The smell of damp wood and mildew wafted out. The flickering light from his phone revealed the interior of the house to be a shadowy, dilapidated mess. "Hello? Pizza delivery," Mark called, his voice quivering. No response. He considered leaving the pizza on the doorstep and getting out of there, but he couldn't resist a peek inside. Cautiously, he stepped over the threshold, pizza box in hand, and entered a musty, cobweb-laden living room. The air was heavy with an inexplicable sense of dread. Mark heard whispers, faint and indistinct, as if someone were talking just out of earshot. Panic began to well up inside him, but he couldn't place the source of the voices. It was as if the very walls were murmuring secrets to one another. He followed the whispers deeper into the house, his phone's light revealing cracked picture frames and shattered glass everywhere. The voices grew louder, becoming desperate and angry. It was as though they were arguing about something, but their words were still muffled and incomprehensible. Finally, Mark found himself in the kitchen. The source of the voices was now clear. In the center of the room, a circle of candles flickered, casting eerie shadows on the cracked linoleum floor. In the center of the circle stood a crude, hand-drawn symbol and what Mark hoped was red paint. Within the symbol, two figures knelt, their backs turned to him. They appeared to be arguing vehemently, their voices reaching a fevered pitch. It was then that Mark saw something that chilled him to his core. The figures weren't arguing with each other. They were arguing with their own reflections in the dirty, cracked mirror that hung on the wall. Terror gripped Mark as he realized he had stumbled upon something far more sinister than an abandoned house. He had walked into the midst of a dark and mysterious ritual. His heart raced, and he desperately wanted to run, but his legs felt like lead. A sudden noise behind him made him jump, and he turned to see a third figure emerge from the shadows. This one, however, was facing him, its face obscured by a hooded robe. It raised its hand, and the candle's flames dimmed, casting an eerie glow on the figure's hand, which was holding a knife. Mark's instincts finally kicked in, and he turned and bolted for the front door. He could hear the figure behind him, the ominous whispers growing louder and more desperate. As he reached the door, he glanced back and saw the figure in the robe chasing him, the knife gleaming in the dim light. Mark burst out into the pouring rain, the sounds of the forest and the sinister voices still echoing in his ears. He sprinted back to his car, fumbling for his keys and praying that the ancient engine would start. With a roar, the car's engine came to life, and Mark sped away from the cursed house, the rain-soaked road blurring around him. He didn't stop until he was back at Tony's pizzeria, safe and sound. Breathing heavily, he tried to explain the horror he had just experienced to his bewildered coworkers. They looked at him skeptically, assuming he was pranking them. Mark realized that he'd never be able to convince them, but he knew the truth. He had ventured into the heart of Pinecrest Woods and stumbled upon something beyond his comprehension, a dark and sinister ritual that defied explanation. From that night on, Mark never took a delivery to Pinecrest Lane again, and he couldn't help but wonder what other horrors might lurk in the heart of those haunted woods.